All right. Hello and welcome to the extended DISC 30-minute webinar series. Today's topic is coaching difficult people using DISC. My name is Christina, and I have with me Wilma Stevens. We're both senior trainers at Extended DISC, but you have the added bonus today of Wilma, who is also a certified executive coach. So thank you for joining us today, Wilma. Say hi.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here. Hello, everybody.
Just before we get started, I just have a few points to note. We'll be recording this webinar and posting it on our website. And even though we won't have time to answer live questions, we strongly encourage you guys to post your questions in the questions section. As always, we answer them after the session. But as Wilma and I were discussing this topic, we realized there's a lot more content that could be covered. So we're keeping this as an open topic for future webinars, and your questions may even generate a webinar session in the future. So please ask away. All right, so today we're specifically focusing on coaching difficult people from the perspective of setting ourselves up for success by being as prepared as possible. So Wilma, you want to take it away?
Right. As Christina said, this topic has a broad scope. And when we're working with difficult people or in a difficult situation, it's not always our favorite time. And let's face it, we want to be good. We want to have our looking good on. And, with that, there's lots of things that we can do to kind of set ourselves up for success. I don't know. Sometimes when I hear a session or I'm anticipating that a session is going to be difficult, I have a response. Christina, when you are about to debrief someone and you are anticipating it's going to be tough, what is your response? Like, what happens to you?
Well, first, of course, I get a little stressed, initial reaction, and then I try to find out as much information as possible about that individual and kind of what the session entails. So,
okay, very typical response. Like quite often what happens, like I know for myself, like I exhale, like, oh boy, right? My shoulders drop. My body kind of gets a little smaller.
Yeah.
And then like all good coaches, we go into action, just like what Christina said. She went, oh boy, and then she says, okay, what am I going to do about it? And I think that the first topic we're going to cover in this series is focusing on preparation. Let's name the game for success. So today, as you listen to this webinar, we hope that you hear something that you need to hear. Something that helps smooth those bumps on the road, those difficult exchanges, those tough conversations with people. So let's get at it. What makes a person difficult? What's a difficult person for you?
Probably someone who does not give me, either feedback or nonverbal communication cues. Just kind of a flat.
Right.
That's
so
tough.
No response.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So really, basically, I would say that it depends. You'll get as many responses as people in the room. What's difficult for you may not be difficult for Christina or me. What's difficult for me may be difficult for you. You see, all vice versa. So it just depends and what our skill set is. So
I think just not even just skill set, but our style, right? I mean, also depends on that as well.
It's all unique.
Absolutely.
So, we talk about like a resistant client. I had this client that was encouraged by his staff that they really strongly felt he needed some coaching. And for him, he would rather put pins in his eyes and chew tinfoil than come for coaching.
What an image.
I mean, I think he even said to me, I don't want to turn into a hot yoga caramel macchiato tree hugger.
Hey, I'm from California. That works for me.
Yes. I mean, for him, his point was like, he was really resistant. Yeah. And, that can be challenging for us when we have a resistant client, aggressive client. Maybe they're pessimistic. You feel like you have Eeyore in front of you. Wah, wah. They can be pathologically right about everything, or full of excuses, maybe disinterested, or they could be pulling that victim routine. Basically, they just might rub you the wrong way.
Right.
And then, of course, one thing that Christina touched on, maybe they have a different behavioral style than you. For instance, my behavioral style, I'm an IDS. I am especially thinking when I work with a very strong C, you know, that my behavioral style will definitely be a little different. And I'm thinking about that. So that's another thing that can sometimes have a session go south, is when the styles are different. Then, of course, the other thing is that I just want to remind you, difficult exists at all levels of the organization. I mean, you could be working with a C-suite. They can be difficult. You could be looking at a frontline manager. They can be difficult. So they come in all levels and all shapes and sizes. The one other thing I wanted to say about that in terms of difficult is timing. You know, we're kind of looking at now when we're anticipating that it's going to be difficult. But I just want to also remind you, the other scenario is when you're in the coaching session and it starts to get more challenging, right? They start to maybe resist, or they're not liking it. And that's another time. So there's 2 times that we're really looking at
And
that.
and this time, are we just focusing on one part of that?
Well, I think that the point is, in preparation, we always want to be well prepared.
Absolutely.
But I just wanted to kind of put it down on the in this conversation that sometimes we can anticipate that it might be a difficult conversation, and sometimes we might not, and it can blindside us.
Yes.
Right? And that, even to me, highlights how important preparation is in getting solid coaching conversations going.
I agree.
So preparation really is the key to success. I think that when we set that stage for that positive outcome, you're only setting yourself up for more success. So you want that rich environment to support your client or your employee for their growth. Obviously, this is not about criticizing them. You're not there to do the heavy lifting, right? They are. And so we can do some preparation in advance. So one of the quotes that we came across when we were looking at this in terms of preparation was Benjamin Franklin. And he talks about, by failing to prepare, you are preparing to fail. And that speaks for itself, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. So right off the bat, I think the first thing in preparation is understanding the assessment tool. Remember, this is a behavioral assessment. It simply reflects how you do what you do. And one of the consistent pieces of feedback that our clients tell us is that they find DISC easy to teach, and uptake is usually pretty good. If you're not familiar really with the assessment, I strongly encourage you to do some reading. There's lots of resources on our website that you can take a look at. And then, of course, read the person's assessment that you're going to coach. Understand what their style is. Anticipate what's going to show up in front of you. Yeah. And one of the nice things is when you have their assessment, so a little advantage is you will know their behavioral style.
Yes, I read everyone's assessment. Even going into workshops, any opportunity I have to know more about the person, why wouldn't I?
Right.
So
yes, right.
And Will was not saying you have to read the whole report for every client. I mean, we all have favorite sections, or we just go to the profiles for that quick, little insight.
But I think when you're starting,
Mm-hmm.
when you're first starting, you want to know the assessment. You want to know page flow.
Right.
You want to know where to source the information. You don't want to be struggling in front of the
client
going,
mm-hmm.
okay, where is this at?
Yeah.
You're really familiar with it. And you're right. You're going to get favorite sections.
Mm-hmm.
You might even want to, what we call friendly fire. If you're new to it, get your best friend at the office and do a practice run. Practice makes perfect.
And we as trainers are here to be your friendly fire as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So one of the thoughts that we had is make sure you are not the difficult one, right? I mean, we hate to admit it, but sometimes we are the difficult one. And it's possible that we can be the weak link in the chain. So think about a difficult coaching session that you've had that didn't go as well as you may have liked. And what was your involvement? What was your impact? Have you know, when we have a little self-reflection ourselves, that's important. This expression, attitude equals altitude. There's a famous quote: if you think you can, you're right. If you think you can't, you're right. Your attitude determines your results. So I would say what we want is a can-do attitude. We want to convey that we're open-minded, respectful, and that we're present in this conversation. A couple things. I think we have to remember that the person hasn't seen your whole day yet, right? Just the moment that you're presently in. And you haven't seen their day yet, their whole day, just when they walk through the door. So you have to keep that in mind.
Yeah,
so
I think,
go ahead.
The common sense and the logical part of me said, obviously make sure you're not the difficult one, but to see it there, it really kind of was a light bulb moment for even me, is to actually be very self-aware of the fact that I am not the difficult one. So that was a good point for me to learn from this.
Yeah. And often, you've had a rough day and it piles on you.
Exactly.
And you may not be at your best. So it's a great segue into the next slide. Number 1 coaching recommendation: breathe. When you're feeling stressed, breathe. We know that stress drains the brain of oxygen. It causes us to lose our mental agility, our balance, our concentration, the control of our emotions. When we're stressed, we're not always at our best. And our brain cells, of course, need a higher rate of metabolism, or they have a higher rate of metabolism than other parts of our bodies. And so they need relatively more oxygen. So it's really important to take that breath in times of stress. And I would say breathe consciously. You can try it right now. Take that deep breath in through your nose and let it all go. And it really relaxes you, and it also helps you get centered.
Absolutely.
That fight or flight reflex that we all have, which is all in us. The big breath helps us stay grounded.
I think also, not just like even when we're under stress, but our day to day when we don't consider ourselves under stress, but moving from client to client, employee to employee, take that moment to get a couple seconds, breathe. Not only does it reground yourself, it resets your thinking. It's like, okay, I'm now dealing with a different person, a different style.
Yeah, good point.
Don't go into that auto mode.
Good point. Yes, definitely. And when I said that conscious breath, I'm not talking about being in the middle of a coaching session and start to sigh, but a deep breath will probably help you, and it'll get some some oxygen to your brain where you need it.
Sounds great.
Okay. Your body language. Pay attention, right? Those non-verbal cues. Like, how are you greeting the person, right? Are you setting that stage? Really? Like, I always say, smile Again, that relaxes you, but it relaxes them. Sit up, lean forward, show your hands. I think that we usually trust people when we can see their hands. Lean in, make eye contact. You know, when I say like smile, be positive, I'm not saying like be the village idiot,
Yeah.
right? Obviously, you want to take the situation, where you're at, but you're trying to greet them in a way that keeps them, not nervous, not put off. Be
It
professional.
relaxes the people, I think. And then, of course, I think always not just your own body language, but take a quick check of your client or employees or other person's body language as well. They will give you some information about how to best interact with them. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes, that is such a good point. I mean, picture it. There they are, sitting, arms folded, kind of a pensive look on their face. You're going to know they're not comfortable.
Yeah.
Right? You want to put them at ease.
Absolutely.
So you're right. Very good. Check in with who you're, working with. Set the stage for success. Choose the right time. We say that, a session on the late afternoon on a Friday might not be, your perfect time. Late in the day, often people are tired. You're usually more stressful. I recommend, if it possible, to do your sessions in the morning or the early afternoon. I think people respond to you with more mental clarity. Location. That expression in real estate, location, location, location. It's the same in coaching.
Yeah.
You're going to need some privacy. Nobody wants to talk with an audience. I think you were the one that brought up now the number of cubicles.
Yeah. Not a lot of privacy in cubicles.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
You might have to book a boardroom.
Yeah.
Or a place where you have privacy. Consider where you will sit. Are you sitting across from them? Are you sitting on the same side? Will you each have a copy of this assessment?
Mm-hmm.
Or will you both work from one copy? I mean, all of these are
considerations.
Yeah, for you and what works well for you. Okay. I think this is really, really important. When we are coaching, we must lose our judgment. And it's important to remember that this report holds no value judgments. So lose yours. Any preconceived notions you have about this person, you may have heard stories about them, lose it. Your opinions, lose it. You may have heard rumors, that little office gossip that is tainting your view. You must lose it. Think of it from their perspective. Have some empathy. I think ideally, when we come into a debriefing, we must be neutral and we must be objective. Remember, your job is to help them communicate better by increasing their awareness and their ability to adjust.
Great point.
So the big picture in debriefing and assessment, I always say, remember to my clients, you're not broken. You don't need to be fixed. Your style works for you until it doesn't. And your goal ultimately is to get them to recognize when a behavior modification would be appropriate. And by doing this, ultimately, that will improve the communication that they're having. So when we are coaching, and when I'm about to do review someone's assessment, I really want to establish a DISC debriefing mindset. And yesterday when Christine and I were talking about this, she said, let's talk a little bit more about mindset. So we decided that we would get you the definition of mindset. So the dictionary definition of mindset was the noun. It's an attitude, a disposition or a mood, an intention or an inclination. The ideas and attitudes with which a person approaches a situation, especially when these are seen as being difficult to alter. So really, when we're talking about this mindset, it's How are you going to set the stage for success? So there's something that we do in terms of getting a debriefing mindset. And right off the bat, whether I have, 5, 10, 15 people in the room and we're going through people's assessment as a group, or whether we're doing one-on-one coaching, I will go through these points regardless of having this slide or not. But these slides, are available. I want people to recognize that this is a behavior inventory, and it's based on self-evaluation. So remember, you did not answer the questions. They answered the questions about themselves. It's designed to clarify in what order and relation to others one prefers an area of that 4-quadrant model. This is not a test. You are not judging them. Make sure they recognize they are not being judged. There's no right or wrong answers. But there's 24 forced choice questions, and they're difficult. And I'm sure Christina can attest to this. Quite often in the session, we will get feedback from people that the questions were tough.
Yes.
Right?
Like they didn't know how to answer.
Right, because they could read them. You have to pick, something that most describes you and something that least describes you. And it can all sound like you.
Yeah, exactly.
Or none of it.
Absolutely.
And it forces you to choose. And that's part of the magic of the assessment. Remember, this is based on the DISC model, and it measures your natural behavioral style or natural reaction modes in different situations. So what does that mean? It means that this report shows who you actually are. It measures your unconscious behavior, not just who you think you need to be in your current work environment. Those other things are their adjustments.
Mm-hmm.
This report does not measure how smart you are. It does not tell me what your professional skills are or your attitudes. When I'm reading a report, I cannot tell if you were successful or not by reading your report. I don't know if you're honest. So as we said, it holds no value judgment. And it's important to let people know that it doesn't limit their ability to develop in other directions or work environments. Their feet are not nailed to the floor. Everyone has that ability to adjust their behaviors, if they're willing to get that focus and use the energy that it takes. And I think the other point that I like to share with people is, remember, don't use your style as an excuse for yourself or for other people. I mean, it's an easy fallback position. Oh, well, I'm an I, don't give me the spreadsheets, but that's an excuse, right? I mean, I shouldn't really throw that one out there. And finally, I want people to know this is not just a pretty picture report. Extended DISC assessment does not just go, you're awesome, fantastic, supercalifragilistic. I mean, you're epic. No, right? It gives you something to work with because it shows things that we like to see about ourselves and we recognize. Then it shows you things that you may not necessarily like about yourself, but you recognize. And then the big piece, it shows you those things that you can be unaware of. And those are the blind spots. Those are the aha moments you really want to have your clients focus on. Exactly. So a couple key points that's really important. And these are reflected right in the assessment, these key points. So you have something that you can prompt yourself right in the report. And it just talks about that this is not a better or worse conversation. One style is not better than the others, even though that might be people's story.
Yeah.
It's not true. There are similarities and there are differences. All styles have strengths and all styles have areas of development. One of the things that we talk about, Christina and I talk about, is, characteristics of styles. We talk about, say, a D style. We could identify them as confident. And it's sure, they're overtly confident. But, we say here, of course, I's are confident, S's are confident, C's are confident. How they depict that will be different. They're not less confident, they just do it differently.
That is such a great point. How we show stress, how we show confidence, like you said, is different in different styles.
Right. And remember, this report just reflects how you do what you do. So our style doesn't limit what we can accomplish or how successful we can be. It predicts our preferences. And we always remind our people that successful people are represented by all styles. No one has the market cornered. We say keenly self-aware or confidently self-aware and able to modify their style. So the next section that we're really looking at here is listen. We all know that in a coaching session, whether it's going super well or super poorly, listening is so important. And you need to listen like you mean it. My mom used to have this expression, and she used to say, remember, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth. What do you think that means? And I, of course, as a younger person, wasn't quite sure. But as I practiced the art of listening,
the fact that we have more ears than mouth.
Yeah, and got better at it. Listening to is a learned skill. We can all become better listeners. But I would have to say, when you're in a really difficult conversation, you have to listen even more. So as you're going through the debriefing, remember, think about your own nonverbal communication skills, right? That steady eye contact without appearing like you're staring them down. Maybe you're matching their postures. Make sure that your body language is congruent with your message, right? And also, as you pointed out yesterday, Christine, take a look at your client, right? What are their nonverbal communication cues to you? It's going to tell you a lot on how this is going, maybe what's working and what's not. Silence. We often have, in a debriefing, periods of silence. Sometimes people need time to reflect on what you've just shared with them. People from the left-hand side of the model, so I'm really speaking more S and C, or people maybe that tend to be a little bit more introverted than extroverted, just need a minute, or not even a minute, just a moment to collect their thoughts before they speak. So I always say, don't rush to fill that space. Give them time to respond.
And that's something for those of us, a lot of us consciously, we have to use a lot of energy to do that. But yeah, it's so important to be quiet sometimes.
Yeah, let it just sit. We can restate things, just simply repeating back words or paraphrasing, say things back in your own words. Regardless, the listening is half of the communication conversation. And I would really strongly encourage you, when things are, feeling a little bit stressful, make sure you're listening, because your client, it's important that they know you hear them. If people feel that heard, it's a lot easier to continue on in the conversation.
I think that's half the battle. If they are heard, they feel heard, then yes.
Yeah. We put this on here. You can lead a horse to water. Remember, coaching a challenging person, remember, you can only do your best. You are only responsible for your behavior. You are not expected, they're the only ones that can change their behavior. So just remember that. Your job is to help them on their journey of self-discovery. So you can lead them to water. It's up to them to figure out what they're going to do. And finally, I just want to remind you, keep doing this. When you're facing a difficult situation, it's going to help you. Take a deep breath. So
thank you, Wilma. I've, as always, learned a lot from Wilma. She has a great perspective on everything. So she's kind of my go-to person. So thank you for today.
thank you. And by the way, Kristen and I both wish you very well and enjoy your difficult clients and conversations because they make your day interesting.
Absolutely. Not just autopilot. Every day is a new experience. That's a good way to go into it. So, just I would think what I took away from this is not only listen, but breathe. I mean, keep it simple, be engaging. So, thank you, Wilma, for that. Because we got so excited and this topic is so important, I think, and it's a challenge we face all the time in our practice. We decided to extend the topic. So, next webinar is a continuation of this one, coaching difficult people using DISC. This one we focus more on basically setting ourselves up for success by being more prepared.
Right.
The next session is what happens when you're in a debrief or in a session and it starts to get difficult. How do you handle those pushbacks and objections? And so that will be our next coaching session, next webinar, I should say. It's going to be November 4th. It's a Friday, just a little change up of dates. Same time, 10 o'clock Central Standard Time. We'll be sending out information. Again, this is recorded. And thank you all again for joining us.
Yes, thank you. Have a great rest of your week.